Imagine, for a moment, the quietest hour of your life, a time when the world seemed to pause, and in that stillness, a question slipped into your mind, unbidden, like a shadow crossing a sunlit room. Why am I here? What does it mean to exist at all? These are not mere thoughts. They are weights, invisible yet pressing, resting on the edges of your soul. Philosophy, in its truest form, is not a pursuit of answers, but a confrontation with these burdens, a slow, deliberate descent into the depths of what it means to be alive. And sometimes that descent feels like it might crush us under its gravity. Let us linger on that first moment of questioning, when the fabric of everyday life tore just enough to reveal the vast uncertainty beneath. Perhaps you were young, lying, awake in the dark, staring at a ceiling that suddenly seemed too small to contain the enormity of your wonder. Or maybe it came later, in a fleeting second of solitude, when the noise of routine fell away, and you were left with nothing but yourself, and the quiet roar of existence. That moment, however it arrived, was a threshold. You stepped across it, unknowingly, into a realm where every certainty could be unraveled, where the very act of thinking becomes both a gift and a burden. Consider the weight of this inquiry, how it settles into the bones. To ask about the meaning of life is to invite a kind of unease, a tremor beneath the calm surface of daily existence. It is as if the mind, in its hunger for understanding, unearths a stone too heavy to lift. The ancient Greeks felt this weight when they gazed at the stars and wondered if their fates were woven into the constellations. Socrates, standing in the marketplace of Athens, pressed his fellow citizens with questions so piercing that they could not look away, even as those queries led him to his own end. To question is to risk everything: comfort, clarity, peace. And yet, we cannot stop. There is a pull, a quiet compulsion, to peer into the abyss, even if what we find there isn't nothing at all. Think of philosophy as a vast ancient sea. Its surface may appear still, reflecting a sky of endless possibility, but beneath, there are currents that can drag you under without warning. Every idea, every school of thought is a wave, some gentle, lapping at the edges of your understanding, others towering, threatening to overwhelm. Existentialism, with its stark gaze at freedom and despair. Stoicism, with its call to endure what cannot be changed. Absurdism, with its bitter laughter at a universe that refuses to explain itself. Each of these is a weight in its own right, pressing down on the soul, asking you to carry it, to make sense of it, even as it resists your grasp. Take a moment to reflect on this. When did you first feel the heaviness of your own existence? Was it a single question that lingered too long? Or a quiet realization that the world might not hold the answers you seek? Let that memory surface and sit with it for a breath or two. Feel the subtle pressure of it, not as a burden to cast off, but as a companion on this journey. A reminder that to think deeply is to live deeply, even when it aches. This weight of existence is not something we can escape, nor should we wish to. It is the very thing that makes us human, this restless need to understand, to probe the edges of what we are. Picture a lone figure walking through a misty field at dawn, their steps slow, their head bowed not in defeat but in contemplation. They carry no visible load, yet their shoulders seem to sag under an unseen force. That force is the question of being itself, the silent pressure of a life that demands to be reckoned with. And as they walk, the mist parts just enough to reveal a horizon that stretches endlessly onward, offering no destination, only the promise of more questions, more weight, more wonder. Let us not rush past this feeling, this subtle crushing of the soul under the enormity of thought. Instead, let us dwell in it, as one might linger in the cool shadow of a great mountain, knowing that to climb is to struggle, but to stand still is to miss the view. The weight of existence is not a punishment. It is an invitation. It asks us to bear it with curiosity, to let it shape us without breaking us, to find in its heaviness a strange and quiet strength. For in the act of questioning, in the very act of feeling this burden, we begin to trace the outlines of what it means to be alive. And perhaps, in that tracing, we find not answers, but a kind of peace. A peace born not of certainty, but of the courage to keep asking, to keep carrying the weight step by step into the unknown. Imagine for a moment that you stand at a crossroads. The sky above you, a heavy sheet of grey, stretching endlessly in every direction. The air is still, almost suffocating, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to choose. Before you lie paths, each one winding into a horizon you cannot see, each one whispering promises and threats in equal measure. There is no signpost, no guiding star, no voice to tell you which way to turn. You are alone with the weight of your decision, a weight that seems to press down on your shoulders like an unseen hand. This is no ordinary choice. This is the burden of freedom, a concept so vast and so personal that it can feel like a silent storm raging within. Let us linger here, in this moment of profound solitude, and consider what it means to be truly free. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of radical freedom, a state where every choice is yours and yours alone to bear. There is no divine plan to lean on, no cosmic order to absolve you of responsibility. Every step you take, every path you choose, is a creation of your own will, and with it comes the full consequence of that creation. Imagine the man at this crossroads, his boots caked with the dust of a long journey, his eyes scanning the endless roads. Does he feel liberated by this boundless possibility? Or does he feel the crushing weight of having no one to blame but himself? Freedom, in this sense, is not a gift. It is a sentence, a lifelong trial where every verdict falls on your shoulders. Think of the paths before him. One might lead to a life of quiet comfort, a warm hearth, a family to call his own. Another might lead to adventure, to lands unknown, but also to danger, to loss, to nights spent shivering under a merciless sky. A third might circle back on itself, returning him to this very spot years later, older, weary, with nothing to show for the miles he's walked. He cannot know, he cannot predict, and yet he must choose. There is no escape from this act of creation, for even to stand still, to refuse to move, is a choice in itself. A choice to let the world pass him by, to let his life be shaped by inaction rather than intent. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt this weight, this invisible burden, when faced with a decision that seemed to define your very being? Did you feel the freedom as a soaring liberation or as a quiet dread? Sartre tells us that we are condemned to be free. Condemned, a word that carries such heaviness, such finality. It suggests a punishment, a state we cannot escape no matter how much we might wish to surrender our autonomy. We long for guidance, for someone or something to take the reins, a parent, a deity, a set of rules etched in stone. But in the philosophy of existentialism, there is no such reprieve. The man at the crossroads looks to the sky, hoping for a sign, a break in the clouds, a whisper on the wind. But the grey remains unbroken, the silence unbroken. He is the author of his story, whether he wishes to be or not. And in writing that story, he must face the anxiety of freedom, the realization that every choice could be a misstep, every decision a regret waiting to bloom. Yet, within this burden, there is a strange, quiet beauty. If we are condemned to be free, we are also gifted with the power to shape our existence. The man at the crossroads, though weighed down by the unknown, holds within him the capacity to build meaning from the chaos. He can choose a path not because it is right or wrong in some grand universal sense, but because it is his. He can carve his name into the earth, however fleetingly, and say, "This was my choice. This was my life." Freedom, then, is both. A stone upon his back and a flame in his chest. A paradox that burns and binds in equal measure. Let us sit with this thought for a while, under this grey and endless sky. Imagine yourself at that crossroads, the paths stretching out before you, like veins of a world waiting to be explored or feared. Feel the weight of your freedom, the way it tugs at your heart, the way it whispers that there is no one else to carry this for you. Does it frighten you, this boundless responsibility? Or does it stir something deeper, a quiet resolve to step forward, to choose, to become? The sky offers no answers, but perhaps the act of choosing is answer enough. Imagine for a moment a lone astronomer perched on the edge of a windswept hill, their telescope pointed toward the infinite expanse of the night sky. The stars above glitter with a cold, unfeeling beauty, each one a distant furnace burning in, silence, oblivious to the eyes that seek them out. This astronomer, weathered by years of gazing into the void, is not merely charting constellations or calculating orbits. No, their search is deeper, more desperate. A quiet, unspoken plea for meaning, for a sign that the universe holds some hidden purpose, some whispered answer to the ache in their chest. But the stars remain indifferent, their light a message sent millions of years ago, long before this solitary figure ever drew breath. And in that vast, unyielding silence, a profound realization begins to take shape, one that both humbles and unsettles the soul. This is the heart of what Albert Camus called the absurd, the collision between our relentless human hunger for meaning and the universe's stubborn refusal to provide it. We are creatures of longing, aren't we? From the moment we first open our eyes, we seek patterns, reasons, a narrative to stitch together the chaos of existence. We build myths, philosophies, and sciences, all in the hope of uncovering a truth that will finally make sense of it all. We gaze at the stars, as our astronomer does, and ask, why am I here? What does this vastness mean for me? Yet the cosmos offers no reply. It simply is, endless, impersonal, and utterly unconcerned with our questions. This is not cruelty, nor is it kindness. It is merely the way of things, a reality that stands apart from our desires, like a mountain unmoved by the wind. But what are we to do with this clash, this tension between our need for purpose and the universe's silence? Camus suggests that the absurd is not a conclusion, not a surrender to despair, but a starting point. It is an invitation to live without illusion, to face the indifference of the world with open eyes, and still choose to create, to love, to exist. Think of our astronomer again, their hands trembling slightly as they adjust the telescope, their breath fogging in the cool night air. They know the stars will not speak to them, not in any language they can understand. They know there is no grand design waiting to be unveiled in the patterns of light above. And yet, they return to their vigil night after night, driven not by the promise of answers, but by the sheer act of searching, by the quiet defiance of looking upward even when no one looks back. Consider this for a moment. What if meaning is not something to be found, but something to be forged? What if the absurdity of our condition, the lack of inherent purpose in the universe, is not a weight to crush us, but a canvas to paint upon? We are, after all, storytellers by nature. We weave tales from the raw material of our lives, crafting significance from fleeting moments, from a shared glance, a fleeting joy, or even the ache of loss. The stars may not care, but we do. The universe may be silent, but our voices are not. And perhaps that is enough, or at least it can be, if we dare to embrace the absurd rather than recoil from it. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt that longing for meaning, that quiet ache when the world seems too vast, too empty to hold the answers you seek? Perhaps you've stood beneath a night sky of your own, or faced a question that no book, no philosophy, no faith could fully resolve. How did you respond to that silence? Did you turn away, or did you, like the astronomer, keep looking, keep asking, even knowing the answer might never come? Camus tells us of Sisyphus, the mythical figure condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it tumble down each time he nears the summit. A punishment, a curse. And yet, Camus imagines Sisyphus as a kind of hero, a man who accepts the futility of his task and finds a strange, defiant joy in the act of pushing onward. In the face of the absurd, Sisyphus does not despair. He persists. He knows the hill will never be conquered, just as our astronomer knows the stars will never yield their secrets. But in the rhythm of the struggle, in the choice to keep going, there is a kind of victory, a human victory, born not from the universe's approval, but from our own stubborn will to live, to seek, to be. And so, as the night deepens, and the astronomer's tired eyes trace yet another arc of light across the heavens, there is no revelation, no cosmic whisper to break the silence. The stars remain as they always have, distant and unknowable. But perhaps, in that very indifference, there is a subtle liberation. If the universe owes us nothing, then we owe it nothing in return. We are free to define our own paths, to carve meaning from the stone of our days, even as we stand beneath a sky that does not care. The absurd is not an end, but a beginning, an invitation to live fully, fiercely, in a world that offers no guarantees. And in that realization, there is a quiet, mysterious strength, one that lingers long after the telescope is lowered and the hill falls silent once more. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the deck of a small, weathered ship, the vast ocean stretching endlessly around you. The sky above churns with dark, brooding clouds, and the wind howls with a ferocity that seems almost personal, as if it knows your name. You grip the wheel tightly, your knuckles pale, convinced that with enough strength, enough will, you can steer your way through the storm. But the waves rise higher, crashing over the bow with a force that shakes your very bones. And in that moment, a quiet, unsettling truth begins to seep into your mind. No matter how fiercely you fight, the storm is not yours to command. This is the illusion of control, a fragile belief that we weave around ourselves like a thin, tattered cloak against the cold unpredictability of life. We chart our courses, make our plans, set our goals, with the certainty that we are the masters of our fate. We tell ourselves that if we work hard enough, think clearly enough, we can bend the world to our will. But then the storm comes, whether it's a sudden loss, an unexpected failure, or simply the slow, inevitable unraveling of something we thought was secure. And we are left to face the humbling reality that so much of existence lies beyond our grasp. Consider the sailor in our story, a man who has spent his life navigating the seas, reading the stars, learning the language of the tides. He believes he knows the ocean, that he has tamed it through years of toil and skill. But as the storm rages on, his ship tossed like a child's toy in the hands of a merciless giant, he begins to see the folly of his arrogance. The ocean does not care for his experience or his determination. It does not bend to his commands or heed his pleas. It simply is, a force so vast, so indifferent, that his struggle seems almost laughable in its futility. And yet, isn't there something profound in this realization? Something that, while crushing at first, carries within it a strange kind of liberation. The ancient Stoics understood this well. They taught that the only true control we possess lies not in the external world, but within ourselves, in how we respond to the tempests that life throws our way. They urged us to distinguish between what is in our power and what is not, to pour our energy into our thoughts, our attitudes, our virtues, and to let go of the rest. Imagine the sailor, drenched and weary, finally releasing his white-knuckled grip on the wheel, not in defeat, but in surrender. He cannot stop the storm, but he can stop fighting it. He can stand firm on the deck, face the wind, and accept that some things are simply beyond him. In that acceptance, there is a quiet strength, a dignity that no wave can wash away. But let's linger on this thought for a moment. Isn't it both comforting and terrifying to admit how little we truly govern? On one hand, it frees us from the exhausting burden of trying to control the uncontrollable, from the endless anxiety of forcing life to conform to our designs. On the other, it strips us bare, leaving us to confront the raw chaos of a world that does not revolve around our wishes. What does it mean to live with this truth? To wake each day, knowing that our plans are but whispers against the roar of an untamable reality. Take a moment to reflect on this, to feel the weight of surrender, and perhaps the strange peace that comes with it. Picture the sailor now, the storm still raging, but his eyes no longer fixed on the horizon with desperate determination. Instead, he looks out at the churning sea with a kind of quiet awe, as if seeing it for the first time. He understands that his survival may not be guaranteed, that the next wave could be his last. Yet, in this moment of clarity, he finds something deeper than fear or frustration. He finds a connection to something larger, an acknowledgement that he is part of this wild, untamed world, not its ruler. His plans, his maps, his carefully drawn routes, they were always illusions, fragile sketches on a canvas that the ocean could erase with a single stroke. And so we too must ask ourselves, where in our lives are we clinging to the illusion of control? Where are we gripping the wheel so tightly that our hands ache, refusing to see that the storm will do as it pleases? Perhaps it's in our pursuit of perfection, in our need to orchestrate every outcome, or in our belief that we can protect ourselves from the inevitable uncertainties of being. What might happen if we loosened our hold, if only for a moment? What might we discover in the space between control and chaos? As the sailor stands on his battered ship, the storm begins to ease, though the sea remains restless. The clouds part just enough to let a sliver of pale light break through, illuminating the endless expanse of water around him. He doesn't know if he'll reach shore, or if another tempest waits just beyond the horizon. But for now, he breathes deeply, feeling the salt on his skin, the sway of the deck beneath him. He is here, in this moment, neither master nor victim, but simply a man amidst the waves, a man who has learned that to live is not to control, but to endure, to accept, and sometimes to let go. Take a moment to reflect on this, to imagine yourself standing beside him, feeling the vastness of the sea, and wondering what it means to truly release the reins of a life that was never fully yours to steer. Imagine, for a moment, standing in the heart of an abandoned town where the air is thick with the scent of decay and forgotten dreams. Before you looms a crumbling clock tower, its ancient stone facade scarred by the relentless march of years. The hands of its weathered face tick forward with a cruel indifference, as if mocking the stillness around it. Each second that slips away carries with it a fragment of what once was. Memories, laughter, promises, all dissolving into dust beneath the weight of an unstoppable force. Time, that silent tyrant, binds us all in its unyielding grip. And tonight, we linger here to ponder its quiet, devastating power. What is it about time that feels so oppressive, so inescapable? It is not merely the passing of days or the greying of hair that haunts us, but the way it strips everything bare, revealing the impermanence of all we hold dear. A childhood home once filled with warmth becomes an empty shell, its walls echoing with voices long silenced. A cherished moment, vivid in the mind's eye, fades like a photograph left too long in the sun, its edges curling into nothingness. We build monuments to defy this erosion, careers, families, legacies, yet even these are but sandcastles before the tide. The clock tower stands as a sentinel of this truth, its shadow stretching across the desolate square, reminding us that, no matter how fiercely we cling, time will always claim its due. Consider the paradox at the heart of our struggle with time. We yearn for it to slow, to grant us just one more hour with a loved one, one more sunrise to savor. Yet, in the same breath, we wish it away, rushing through days of monotony or pain, chasing a future we imagine will be kinder. Are we not, in this endless dance, complicit in our own loss? Each moment we dismiss as insignificant is a brick pulled from the foundation of our lives, until one day we turn to find the structure crumbling. The clock tower's hands do not pause for our regrets, nor do they hasten for our impatience. They move with a rhythm older than memory, indifferent to the stories we weave within their span. Take a moment to reflect on this. When was the last time you felt time slip through your fingers? Perhaps it was in the quiet of a late night, watching the hours bleed into dawn, or in the sudden realization that a year had passed without notice. What did you lose in that unspoken theft? And what, if anything, did you gain? Let us wander closer to the clock tower, its base overgrown with ivy that claws at the stone as if trying to halt its decay. Up close, you can hear the faint grinding of gears within, a mechanical heartbeat that persists despite the ruin. It is a sound that stirs something primal, a reminder of our own fleeting pulse. Philosophers have long grappled with this force. Augustine called it a distension of the soul, a stretching between past and future that leaves us perpetually unmoored. Heidegger saw it as the horizon of our being, the boundary that gives shape to our existence, even as it promises our end. But these are mere words, attempts to cage a beast that cannot be tamed. Time does not belong to us. We belong to it, carried along its current like leaves on a river, unable to swim against the flow. And yet, is there not a strange beauty in this tyranny? In the way time carves lines into a face, each wrinkle a story of laughter or sorrow. In the way it forces us to choose, to prioritize, to distill a life into its most essential parts. Perhaps the clock tower is not merely a symbol of loss, but a quiet teacher, urging us to see the preciousness of now. For if all fades, then every fleeting second becomes a treasure, every breath a defiance of the void. But this lesson is a heavy one, for to truly grasp it is to live with the ache of knowing it will not last. The hands tick onward, and the dust gathers thicker at our feet. Let us linger here a while longer in the shadow of this ancient sentinel and ask ourselves, do we fight time or do we surrender to it? Do we spend our days building against its current, or do we let it wash over us, smoothing our edges like river stones? There is no answer etched into the stone before us, no wisdom in the relentless motion of those hands. There is only the question, hanging in the still air, as the world around us fades a little more with each passing moment. Take a moment to reflect on this. What will you do with the time that remains? Imagine for a moment the first light of dawn creeping over the edge of a vast, endless ocean. The world is silent, save for the soft whisper of waves against a distant shore. At the top of a jagged cliff, a solitary figure stands, wrapped in the cool embrace of morning mist. They gaze out at the horizon, not in search of anything tangible, but as if trying to bridge an invisible chasm between themselves and the rest of existence. There is a weight in their stillness, a quiet ache that comes not from the body, but from the mind's unyielding awareness. To be conscious, to truly know oneself, is to stand apart, to be alone in a way that no company can ever fully mend. This is the loneliness of consciousness, a silent burden carried by every soul that dares to look inward. It is not the absence of others that isolates us in these moments, but the depth of our own thoughts, the vast inner landscapes that no one else can traverse. The figure on the cliff feels the weight of their own existence as sharply as the cold, wind against their skin. They are aware of their joys, their fears, their fleeting hopes, but how can such things be shared in their entirety? Words falter, expressions fade, and even the deepest connections with others seem to hover at the surface, unable to plunge into the true abyss of the self. Have you ever felt this in the quiet hours before the world awakens, when your thoughts seem to echo in a chamber no one else can enter? Consider the paradox woven into our very being. The more we come to know ourselves, the more we realize how separate we are. Self-awareness is a gift, or perhaps a curse, that carves a divide between us and the unthinking world. A tree sways in the breeze without questioning its purpose. A bird soars without pondering its place in the grand tapestry. But we, with our restless minds, are doomed to stand at the edge of our own cliffs, peering into the depths of questions that have no answers. Why do I feel this way? What am I beyond the roles I play and the masks I wear? These inquiries, though they illuminate, also isolate. They draw us into a solitude that is both beautiful and crushing, a solitude that whispers of truths we can never fully articulate. Think back to a moment in your own life when you stood at such a precipice, perhaps not in body, but in spirit. Maybe it was in the stillness of a sleepless night, when the world seemed to recede and left you alone with the hum of your own mind. Or perhaps it was in the wake of a profound realization, when you understood something about yourself that shifted the ground beneath your feet. In those moments, did you feel the weight of being the only one to carry that knowledge? Did you sense the invisible wall that separates your inner world from even those closest to you? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the memory linger, like the first light of dawn that both reveals and obscures. This loneliness is not merely a void to be filled, but a space to be explored. It is in this solitude that we confront the raw essence of who we are, stripped of pretense and expectation. The figure on the cliff does not turn away from the horizon, though the vastness intimidates. They stand there, trembling perhaps, but resolute, as if to say that even in isolation, there is a kind of strength, a quiet defiance against the silence of the self. To be conscious is to be alone, yes, but it is also to be alive in a way that nothing else can replicate. It is to feel the full spectrum of existence, from the sharp sting of doubt to the fleeting warmth of clarity, all within the confines of a single, irreplaceable mind. And so, as the dawn creeps higher and the ocean begins to shimmer with golden light, the solitary figure remains. They do not seek to escape their loneliness, nor do they curse it. They simply stand, bearing witness to the mystery of their own awareness, knowing that this isolation is the price of being truly awake. In this moment, there is a strange peace, a recognition that to be conscious is to be both apart from the world and deeply entwined with it, a paradox that hums softly in the heart of every thought. Let this thought settle over you, like the morning mist, cool and fleeting, yet heavy with unspoken meaning. Imagine, for a moment, a vast desert stretching endlessly beneath a merciless sun, where a lone merchant treks with a caravan of goods, his eyes fixed on a shimmering horizon that promises wealth beyond dreams. His hands are rough from years of toil, his heart heavy with an unquenchable thirst for more gold, more power, more of anything that might fill the hollow space within. But as he reaches each oasis, as he clutches each newfound treasure, a strange emptiness creeps in, colder than the desert night. The coins slip through his fingers like sand, and the hunger returns, sharper than before. What is it about desire that binds us to this endless chase, only to leave us emptier with every gain? This is the paradox that the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrestled with, a vision of human life as a ceaseless cycle of wanting, achieving, and wanting again. He saw desire not as a path to fulfillment, but as a source of suffering, a restless force that drives us forward while ensuring we never truly arrive. Picture that merchant, his back bent under the weight of his burdens, crossing dune after dune in pursuit of a mirage. Each time he grasps what he sought, the thrill fades, replaced by a gnawing boredom or a new, unreachable longing. Schopenhauer whispered a bitter truth. To desire is to suffer, for even in satisfaction, we find no lasting peace. The object of our yearning loses its luster the moment it is ours, and we are left staring into the void, hungry once more. Consider the nature of this hunger. Is it not strange how our minds conjure up visions of perfection, a life just out of reach, a treasure just beyond the next hill? We tell ourselves that if we could only attain that one thing, that one state of being, all would be well. Yet history hums with tales of kings who conquered empires only to weep in their palaces, of poets who penned masterpieces only to drown in despair. The merchant in our story, after years of chasing, sits at last among his riches, surrounded by silks and jewels, yet his eyes are vacant. The desert wind howls through his tent, carrying whispers of something more, something else. What is it that he seeks now, when all he dreamed of lies within his grasp? Take a moment to reflect on this. What is it that you chase? And have you ever paused to wonder if its capture would truly still the ache within? Schopenhauer urged us to see desire as a pendulum, swinging between the pain of lack and the dullness of possession. There is no resting point, no final harmony. He painted life as a tragic play, where the act of wanting is the script we cannot escape. But perhaps there is a quiet mystery here, a question worth lingering on. If desire is suffering, why do we cling to it so fiercely? Why does the merchant rise again at dawn, his weary bones protesting, to chase another phantom across the sands? Is it mere habit, or is there something deeper, a primal force woven into the fabric of our being, a whisper from the universe itself that bids us to seek, even when we know the seeking will wound us? Let us wander further into this thought. Imagine desire as a flame within, one that warms us with hope, but burns when we draw too near. It is the light that guides the merchant through the desolate expanse, the spark that keeps him moving when the sun blisters his skin and the nights turn his breath to frost. Yet that same flame consumes him, leaving ash where joy might have been. Schopenhauer believed that only by extinguishing this fire, by renouncing desire, could we approach a kind of peace, a stillness akin to the desert at midnight, when even the wind holds its breath. But is such a surrender possible? Can we truly step away from the wants that define us, or are they as much a part of us as the blood in our veins? As the merchant's journey stretches on, his footsteps grow slower, his dreams dimmer. He passes other travelers, their eyes mirroring his own, haunted by the same unfulfilled promises. They speak of distant cities where happiness waits, of treasures that will finally be enough. Yet in their voices, there is a tremor, an unspoken fear that they too will find only sand in their hands. Perhaps this is the true weight of desire, not the chase itself, but the dawning realization that no horizon holds the answer. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever reached for something with all your strength, only to find it crumble into nothingness upon arrival? What did that moment teach you about the nature of your own longing? In the quiet of this desert, under a sky too vast to comprehend, the merchant pauses at last. He looks at the endless path ahead, then at the worn map in his hands, its edges frayed from years of desperate hope. For the first time, he wonders if the treasure he seeks lies not in the world beyond, but in the act of letting go, in laying down the map, in turning his gaze inward to the silence that has always waited. Beneath the noise of want, Schopenhauer's words echo here, carried on the wind. To live is to desire, and to desire is to suffer. But perhaps, in this fleeting moment of stillness, there is a glimpse of something else, a freedom not in having, but in releasing. This desert stretches on, indifferent to his choice, and yet, in its vastness, there is a strange kind of peace, an invitation to simply be, if only for a breath. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in a labyrinth of mirrors, a place where every turn reveals another version of yourself. Some reflections smile with a knowing glint, others stare back with hollow eyes, and a few seem to whisper words you cannot quite hear. As you wander deeper, a creeping unease settles in. Each image feels both familiar and foreign, as if the person you thought you were is nothing more than a fragile illusion, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Who are you really, when every reflection casts a different shadow on your soul? This maze is not just a carnival trick or a fleeting dream. It is a metaphor for the fragility of identity, the delicate construct we call the self. We spend our lives building this image, layer by layer, memory by memory, choice by choice, believing it to be solid, unshakable. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, the roles we play, the values we hold, the dreams we chase. I am a daughter, a friend, a seeker, a failure, a triumph. But what happens when we dare to look closer? When we step into the mirror maze of introspection and see that these labels are not anchors, but wisps of smoke dissolving under scrutiny. Consider the woman walking beside you in this imagined labyrinth. Her name is Clara, though even that feels uncertain now. She has lived 35 years believing she knows herself. A painter with a quiet laugh, a lover of rainy afternoons, a woman who carries her grandmother's stubbornness in her bones. But as she turns a corner in the maze, she catches a reflection. That startles her. The face is hers, yet the eyes are cold, calculating, as if they belong to someone who has buried dreams beneath practicality. Another mirror shows her younger self, wild and reckless, a stranger to the cautious woman she has become. And in yet another, she sees a version of herself she does not recognize at all. A hollow shell, a life unlived, a path not taken. Each reflection whispers a question. Which one is the real Clara? Or is there no such thing as a singular, true self to begin with? This is the crushing weight of identity's fragility. Philosophers have long wrestled with this riddle. David Hume, an 18th century thinker, argued that the self is not a permanent essence, but a bundle of perceptions, a fleeting collection of thoughts and experiences with no fixed core. To Hume, Clara is not one person, but 1,000 momentary impressions, stitched together by memory and habit. If he is right, then what holds us together when those threads begin to fray? If we are not a single, unchanging soul, then who is it that feels the ache of doubt, the longing to be whole? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself, a stray thought, a forgotten memory, a choice you regret, and wondered if you truly know the person staring back? Have you ever felt the ground shift beneath your sense of self, as if the story you've told yourself about who you are might be just that? A story, fragile as glass. As Clara wanders deeper into the maze, the mirrors grow more distorted. One shows her as a child, her face bright with unscarred wonder, and she feels a pang of loss for the innocence she can never reclaim. Another warps her image into something monstrous, a caricature of her worst fears, selfish, cruel, unworthy. She wants to turn away, to escape these fractured visions, but the maze offers no exit. And perhaps that is the point. To question the self is to step into a labyrinth with no end, where every reflection reveals a truth we are not ready to face. That identity is not a fortress, but a house of cards, trembling in the slightest breeze of doubt. Yet there is a strange beauty in this fragility, isn't there? If the self is not fixed, then it is also not bound. Clara, with her countless reflections, is not doomed to be one thing forever. She can shatter the mirrors of her past, step beyond the roles that confine her, and paint herself anew. But this freedom comes at a cost. To let go of a solid identity is to embrace uncertainty, to walk through life as a ghost among ghosts, never quite sure of your own shape. It is to live with the quiet, persistent whisper of doubt. If I am not who I thought I was, then who am I at all? And so Clara stands still for a moment, surrounded by her infinite selves, each one a fragment of a puzzle that may never be complete. The air in the maze grows heavy, the silence thick with unanswered questions. She reaches out to touch a mirror, her fingers brushing against cold glass, and for a fleeting second, she feels the weight of all her possible lives pressing down, but she does not break. Not yet. Instead, she takes a slow breath, letting the uncertainty wash over her like a tide, knowing that to be human is to live in this fragile space between knowing and not knowing, between being and becoming. Take a moment to reflect on this. Close your eyes if you wish, and imagine yourself in Clara's place, standing before a mirror that shows not just your face, but all the faces you've worn, all the selves you've been. Can you feel the fragility of your own identity, the way it shifts like sand beneath your feet? And can you find, even in that uncertainty, a quiet strength to keep walking through the maze, to keep searching for a self that may never be fully found? Imagine a dimly lit courtroom, the air heavy with the scent of old wood and unspoken judgments. A judge sits atop a high bench, his face carved with lines of weary authority, his gavel resting like a dormant beast. Before him stands a trembling soul, awaiting a verdict that will ripple through their life like a stone dropped into still water. But in this moment, it is not the accused who bears the heaviest burden. It is the judge himself, whose shoulders sag under an invisible weight, a weight that no law book or precedent can lighten. What is right? What is wrong? And who, in a world stripped of divine certainty, dares to decide? This is the weight of morality, a burden that presses down on us when we grapple with the values we've inherited, the codes we've been taught to uphold. It is a silent struggle, one that whispers in the quiet of our minds when decisions loom large. Long ago, a philosopher named Nietzsche peered into this abyss and saw not a foundation of unshakable truth, but a maze of human invention. He argued that morality, as we often know it, is not a gift from the heavens, but a chain forged by history, culture, and the hands of those who came before us. These values, he said, can become prisons, binding us to ideas that no longer serve the vitality of life. To live authentically, we must question them, even shatter them, and create our own meaning from the fragments. But oh, how heavy that task feels. To stand as both creator and judge of your own principles is to carry a mountain on your back. Picture the judge again, his eyes scanning the faces in the courtroom, searching for an answer that isn't there. Each law he upholds was written by fallible hands, each moral code shaped by a world that no longer exists in quite the same way. Should he sentence this person out of duty to tradition, or dare to question whether the law still holds truth? If there is no ultimate arbiter, no cosmic scale to weigh right against wrong, then every decision becomes a gamble, a leap into the unknown. And with every choice, the weight grows heavier, for he knows that his verdict will not only shape another's fate, but define his own soul. What would you do in his place? Take a moment to reflect on this. When have you felt the burden of choosing between what you've been taught and what you feel to be true? Nietzsche's critique stings because it strips away the comforting illusion of absolutes. He saw traditional morality as a kind of herd instinct, a way for the many to tame the few, to suppress the wild, untamed spirit that dares to question. But to break free is no easy feat. It means standing alone, facing the chaos of a world where good and evil are not etched in stone, but painted in shades of grey by our own trembling hands. Imagine a time long past when a community gathered to cast out one of their own for defying sacred rules. The outcast, branded as immoral, walks into the wilderness, their heart a storm of defiance and doubt. Were they wrong to challenge the old ways, or were they the only ones truly seeking something real? And if morality is but a construct, what stops us from descending into cruelty or despair when the chains are broken? Yet, there is a strange beauty in this burden, a quiet strength in wrestling with such questions. The weight of morality forces us to look inward, to ask what we truly value when no one else is watching. It compels us to carve our own path, even if the road is steep and shadowed. The judge in our story may never find a perfect answer, but in his struggle, he becomes more human, more alive. Each decision, fraught with uncertainty, is a testament to his courage to bear the weight at all. And perhaps that is the hidden gift of morality's burden, not in finding unassailable truth, but in the act of seeking it, in the raw, imperfect journey of deciding for ourselves what is worth carrying. Let this thought linger as the courtroom fades into silence, the judges, gavel still unstruck, the verdict unwritten. What chains of morality do you carry, and have you ever dared to test their strength? Take a moment to reflect on this, letting the quiet settle around you like a soft, enveloping dusk. In a world without absolutes, every choice is a creation, every judgment a mirror of who we are becoming. And though the weight may never lift, perhaps it is in bearing it that we learn to stand taller, to walk with purpose through the endless grey. Imagine for a moment that you're standing on the edge of a quiet graveyard as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long, trembling shadows over weathered stones. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of earth and forgotten flowers, and there's a stillness here that seems to press against your skin, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Each gravestone, etched with names and dates, stands as a silent witness to a life once lived, a story that wrestled with its own inevitable end. What is it about this place, this moment, that stirs something so deep within us? Why does the thought of our own mortality, that inescapable shadow, linger in every choice we make, every breath we take? There's a concept, whispered through the pages of philosophy, that we are beings toward death. It's not just that we will die one day, but that our very existence is shaped by this truth, even when we try to look away. Think of it as a quiet current running beneath the surface of a river, unseen, yet guiding every ripple, every turn. We build our lives, our dreams, our connections, all while knowing, somewhere in the recesses of our mind, that there is an end waiting. Does this knowledge crush us, or does it carve meaning into our fleeting days? Is it a burden to carry this awareness? Or is it the very thing that sharpens our gaze, making each moment burn a little brighter against the encroaching dark? Picture a man who once walked this very graveyard, long before the stones were worn by time. He was a craftsman perhaps, shaping wood with calloused hands, laughing with his children under a summer sky. Yet, in the quiet of night, he would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by a question he couldn't name. What does it mean to live when death is always near? He didn't have the words of philosophers to guide him, no grand theories to frame his unease, but he felt it all the same. The weight of being finite in an endless world. Did he find peace in his work, in the small joys of a sunrise? Or did he too feel the shadow creeping closer with each passing year? This is the paradox we all inherit. We are creatures of time, bound by its relentless march, yet we yearn to transcend it. We inscribe our names on stone, build monuments, write stories, as if these acts could anchor us against the tide. But stand here, in this graveyard at dusk, and listen to the silence. The wind moves through the grass, indifferent to the names it brushes past. The stars emerge overhead, cold and distant, offering no promises. Are we foolish to resist this end, to fight for meaning in a life so brief? Or is it precisely in this struggle, this defiance, that we become most human? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine your own name on one of these stones, the dates of your life reduced to a simple dash between them. What does that dash hold? What laughter? What pain? What unspoken dreams? Does the thought of it unsettle you? Or does it awaken something, a quiet resolve to live more fully in the time you have? Consider too how this shadow of death isn't just an end but a mirror. It reflects back to us the shape of our days, forcing us to ask, are we living in a way that honors this fleeting gift? Not with grand gestures or desperate grasps for eternity, but in the small, tender acts. The way we listen to a friend, the way we watch the light change over a familiar hill, the way we let ourselves feel the ache of being alive. Perhaps the weight of our mortality isn't meant to crush us, but to remind us of what matters, to strip away the trivial and leave only the raw, beating heart of existence. As the last light fades from this graveyard and the shadows merge into a single, endless dark, there's a strange comfort in this thought. We are not alone in facing this end. Every soul who came before us, every name on these stones, grappled with the same silent truth. And though we cannot escape it, we can choose how we walk toward it, whether with fear, with resignation, or with a quiet, defiant wonder at the mystery of it all. So, as the night deepens around us, let this place be not a reminder of loss, but a whisper to live, to feel, to be, while the light still holds. Imagine for a moment that you've climbed the highest peak, the one you've dreamed of conquering for years. The world stretches out beneath you, vast and silent, a tapestry of struggle and sacrifice now complete. You've done it. The masterpiece of your life, a painting, a career, a legacy, stands finished before you, admired by all who behold it. And yet, as you stand there, gazing at the work of your hands, a strange hollowness creeps into your chest. Where there should be warmth, there is only a void. Where there should be triumph, there is only a whisper of doubt, asking, is this all there is? This is the quiet sting of achievement, a paradox that haunts even the most celebrated among us. Picture an artist, renowned and revered, standing alone in a grand gallery on the night of their greatest exhibition. The room is empty now, the applause of the crowd having faded into memory. Their masterpiece hangs on the wall, a swirl of color and emotion that has captured the hearts of thousands. Critics have wept over its beauty. Strangers have whispered that it changed their lives. But as the artist stares into the canvas, their eyes trace every brushstroke with a growing unease. They remember the sleepless nights, the fevered passion, the belief that this creation would fill the aching space within them. And yet now that it is done, now that the world has crowned them victorious, they feel nothing. Or perhaps, worse than nothing, they feel the weight of an emptiness that no amount of praise can dispel. What is it about achievement that so often leaves us stranded in this desolate place? Is it that we chase goals not for their own sake, but for the promise of something beyond them, a sense of purpose, a confirmation of our worth? We build towers of ambition, brick by brick, believing that at the top, we will find the meaning we've been seeking. But when we reach the summit, we discover that the view is not of paradise, but of a vast, indifferent horizon. The tower was never the answer. It was only a distraction from the deeper question. What are we truly searching for? Consider the ancient myths of heroes who sought glory, only to find it fleeting. Think of Sisyphus, condemned to roll his boulder up the hill for eternity, but imagine for a moment that he reaches the top one day. The boulder stays, the task is complete, and the gods themselves nod in approval. What then? Does he sit atop the hill, basking in victory? Or does he feel the same dread that haunted him on the ascent? The dread of a life without struggle, without something to push against. Perhaps achievement is not the end, but merely a pause before the next hill, the next boulder, the next void. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever reached a goal, small or grand, only to find that the joy was fleeting, that the emptiness returned like a shadow at dusk? What did you feel in that quiet aftermath when the noise of striving fell silent? The artist in our gallery turns away from the canvas now, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. They wonder if the fault lies in the work itself or in the heart that created it. They think of other artists, other creators, whose letters and diaries reveal the same silent ache. Van Gogh, pouring his soul into starry nights and sunflowers, wrote of a loneliness that no painting could cure. Beethoven, crafting symphonies that shook the heavens, confessed to a despair that lingered even as the world sang his name. Is this the hidden cost of creation, of ambition, of reaching for something greater than ourselves? Or is it simply the human condition, a reminder that no external triumph can ever fully quiet the questions within? Perhaps the emptiness of achievement whispers a deeper truth. That meaning cannot be hung on a wall, or measured in applause, or etched into stone. Perhaps it is not something we find at the end of a journey, but something we carry, or fail to carry, within us all along. The artist lingers at the gallery door, the night air cool against their skin. They look back one last time at the masterpiece that was supposed to complete them, and they wonder if the void they feel is not a failure, but an invitation to search beyond the canvas, beyond the accolades, into the uncharted territory of the self. And so, as the gallery fades into darkness behind them, they step into the unknown, carrying the weight of their triumph and the mystery of what lies beyond it. Where does this emptiness lead? What might we discover if we dare to follow it, not with the frantic energy of ambition, but with the quiet curiosity of a soul seeking its true home? Imagine a vast ancient cathedral, its towering arches swallowed by shadow, the air thick with the scent of weathered stone and forgotten incense. You step inside, the heavy wooden doors groaning shut behind you, sealing out the world. The silence is not just an absence of sound, it is a presence, a weight that presses against your chest, as if the very walls are holding their breath. The stained glass, once vibrant with stories of divine promise, now filters a dim grey light, casting fractured patterns on the cold floor. You walk forward, your footsteps echoing like whispers of doubt, and you cannot help but feel the vast emptiness of this sacred place, where once voices rose in fervent prayer. Now there is only the hollow murmur of your own thoughts, unanswered, unacknowledged. This is not merely a building. It is a monument to a longing that has gone quiet. For centuries, souls came here seeking a voice from beyond, a sign that their cries were heard, that their existence mattered in the grand tapestry of the divine. Philosophers like Kierkegaard wrestled with this very silence, this crushing absence that lingers where God once seemed to dwell. They spoke of a leap of faith, a desperate reach across an abyss of uncertainty. But what happens when even that leap feels like falling into nothingness? What does it mean to stand in a place built for communion and hear only the echo of your own voice? The cathedral, with its soaring heights and intricate carvings, becomes a mirror of an inner void, a reminder that the heavens may not reply, that the weight of our questions might be ours alone to bear. Consider the countless hands that carved these stones, the generations who knelt here, whispering their fears and hopes into the ether. Did they feel a presence, a warmth that assured them they were not alone? Or did some, even then, sense this same silence, this same cold indifference seeping through the cracks of their faith? Kierkegaard wrote of the anguish of standing before the infinite, of trembling at the thought that we might be utterly free, utterly responsible for finding meaning in a world that offers no guarantees. Here, in this empty sanctuary, that anguish takes form. The altar, draped in dust, stands as a silent witness to prayers that may have risen to no one. The pews, worn smooth by centuries of devotion, now sit empty, as if even the ghosts of the faithful have abandoned this place. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever called out into the dark, seeking an answer that never came? Have you felt the weight of a silence so profound, it seemed to swallow your very being? In this cathedral of the mind, we confront what it means to seek a God, a purpose, a certainty, and find only the echo of our own longing. The dread of divine absence is not just a theological puzzle, it is an existential ache, a realization that the universe might not be shaped by a loving hand or a grand design. It is the fear that we are whispering into a void, that our deepest yearnings for connection, for meaning, might be met with nothing but the sound of our own breath. Yet, there is a strange beauty in this desolation, a quiet that forces us to turn inward. If the divine is silent, if the cathedral holds no answers, then perhaps the weight of existence shifts to us. We become the architects of our own sanctuaries, the authors of our own sacred texts. The cold stone walls, though they offer no comfort, stand as a testament to human persistence, to our need to build, to seek, to ask, even when the silence is deafening. Maybe this emptiness is not a curse but an invitation, a call to find meaning not in a voice from above, but in the fragile, fleeting beauty of our own lives, in the shared echoes of our unanswered questions. As you stand in this ancient place, the silence grows heavier, yet somehow softer, like a shroud that both burdens and protects. The cathedral does not answer, but it listens in its own way, holding space for your doubts, your fears, your quiet hopes. And perhaps that is enough. Not a revelation, not a certainty, but a moment of stillness where you can simply be, where the crushing silence of God becomes a mirror for the vast, uncharted depths within yourself. Imagine, for a moment, a dimly lit room tucked away in the heart of an ancient library, where the air is thick with the scent of aged parchment and forgotten secrets. The world outside has faded into a distant hum, leaving only the flickering glow of a single candle to illuminate the worn pages of a book that rests before a solitary scholar. This is no ordinary book, nor is this an ordinary night. Each word the scholar reads seems to carry a weight far heavier than the paper it is written on, as if the truths hidden within are not just ideas, but burdens meant to be shouldered by the one who dares to seek them. What is it about knowledge, true knowledge, that can unravel the peace we so carefully construct around ourselves? Why does understanding sometimes feel like a curse, a quiet theft of the innocence we once held? In this shadowed sanctuary of thought, the scholar turns page after page, their brow furrowing with each revelation. They have spent years chasing answers, believing that clarity would bring solace, that to know more would mean to stand taller in the face of life's mysteries. Yet, the deeper they delve, the more they uncover truths that do not comfort, but our wound. They read of the fragility of human constructs, how the systems we build to make sense of the world are but fragile webs, easily torn by the slightest tug of doubt. They learn of histories rewritten by victors, of philosophies that contradict one another, of scientific certainties that crumble under the weight of new evidence. Each discovery chips away at the foundation of what they thought they knew, leaving them to wonder if ignorance might have been a gentler companion. Consider the weight of this burden, the way it presses down not on the body, but on the soul itself. There is a story from ancient times of a man named Prometheus who stole fire from the gods to gift it to humanity. Fire, in this tale, was more than a tool. It was knowledge, illumination, the spark of understanding. But with that gift came a price. Prometheus was chained to a mountain, doomed to suffer for eternity, as if the act of knowing was itself a transgression. Did he regret his choice as the eagle tore at him day after day? Did he wonder if humanity would have been better off in the dark, unburdened by the light he had given them? The scholar in our library might feel a kinship with this doomed titan, for every truth they uncover seems to bind them tighter to a fate they cannot escape. And yet, is there not a strange allure in this suffering? The scholar cannot stop, even as their peace frays at the edges. There is a compulsion to know, a hunger that drives them to turn just one more page, to decipher one more riddle, even if it means losing the simplicity of a world once taken for granted. Perhaps this is the true curse of knowledge, not the truths themselves, but the inability to turn away from them. It is as if the mind, once awakened, becomes a labyrinth of its own making, each corridor leading to deeper questions, each answer revealing only how little we truly grasp. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever stumbled upon a truth that changed the way you saw the world, only to wish you could unsee it? Was there a moment when understanding felt less like freedom and more like a chain? The candle in the library burns lower now, its wax pooling like silent tears on the wooden table. The scholar pauses, their hand trembling as it hovers over a passage that speaks of the impermanence of all things. They read of empires that crumbled despite their wisdom, of thinkers who died questioning the very ideas they had lived for. The words seem to whisper directly to them, asking if their own search for meaning is not just another fleeting spark in an endless void. What does it mean to know so much, only to realize that knowledge itself might be as transient as the breath we take? Is there a point at which understanding becomes not a triumph, but a quiet resignation to the limits of what we can ever truly hold? In the stillness of this moment, the scholar looks out through a narrow window, where the night sky stretches, vast and unknowable beyond the glass. The stars do not offer answers, nor do they seem to care for the weight that presses down on this solitary figure. Yet, there is something in their indifference that mirrors the burden of knowledge itself. Cold, distant, and unyielding, The scholar wonders if peace lies not in knowing more, but in accepting that some truths are too heavy to carry, some questions too vast to answer. Perhaps the greatest wisdom is not in the accumulation of facts, but in learning to live alongside the mysteries that will always elude us. As the candle flickers one last time, casting long shadows across the ancient tomes, the scholar closes the book, though the weight of its words lingers in the air like a quiet storm. They sit in silence, letting the darkness wrap around them, and for a moment, they simply exist with the burden they have chosen to bear. Could it be that knowledge, for all its pain, is also a kind of intimacy with the world, a way of touching the raw, unpolished edges of existence, even if it leaves us scarred? Take a moment to reflect on this. What truths have you sought that changed you, and would you trade the weight of knowing them for the lightness of not knowing at all? Imagine a city cloaked in the deep indigo of midnight, its streets empty save for one solitary figure standing beneath a flickering street lamp. This is no ordinary night. The air hums with a tension that feels almost alive, as if the world itself holds its breath. In the heart of this forgotten place, a revolutionary raises their voice, a cry of defiance against an unyielding regime that looms like a shadow over every life it touches. Their words are sharp, cutting through the stillness, a desperate plea for change, for justice, for something, anything to break the suffocating weight of oppression. But as their voice echoes off the cold, unfeeling walls, it is swallowed by the vast, indifferent night. There is no answer, no stirring of hope, only the hollow sound of their own breath, ragged and spent. What is it about rebellion, this primal urge to push back against the inevitable, that so often leaves us standing alone in the dark, shouting into a void that refuses to reply? Consider for a moment the fire that burns within such a soul. It is a flame born of conviction, fueled by the belief that to resist is to affirm one's own existence, to carve a mark upon a world that seems determined to erase it. Our revolutionary, with clenched fists and a heart pounding like a war drum, embodies this ancient struggle, a struggle as old as humanity itself. From the first tribes who defied the harshness of nature, to the philosophers who challenged the dogmas of their time, we have always been a species that fights, that refuses to bow, even when the odds tower against us like insurmountable mountains. But what happens when that fight yields nothing but silence? When the regime, or the universe itself, gazes down with eyes that do not see, ears that do not hear, and a will that does not bend? Is rebellion, then, a noble act of courage, or merely a futile gesture, a scream into the abyss that changes, nothing but the echo of our own despair? Let us linger on this image of the revolutionary, their silhouette framed by the dim glow of that lonely street lamp. Their voice has faded now, reduced to a whisper carried away by a cold wind. They stand motionless, staring into the darkness that stretches endlessly before them, a darkness that seems to mirror the uncertainty within. History whispers of countless others who stood in similar places, who raised their banners and their voices against forces far greater than themselves. Think of the poets who penned verses of resistance under the shadow of tyranny. Their ink, a weapon as sharp as any sword, yet often as powerless to alter the course of empires. Think of the nameless many who marched in forgotten uprisings, their dreams of freedom buried beneath the weight of time. What did they feel in their final moments of defiance? Did they sense, as our revolutionary does now, the creeping realization that their struggle might be in vain, that the world spins on, heedless of their cries? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt the urge to resist something larger than yourself? A system, a belief, a truth you could not accept? Did you too feel the rush of purpose, only to be met with a silence so profound it seemed to mock your very effort? There is something deeply human in this act of rebellion, yet something equally crushing in its aftermath. For to rebel is to assert meaning in a world that often denies it, to demand a response from a void that offers none. Our revolutionary, standing alone in that desolate street, begins to understand this bitter paradox. Their fight was not just against a regime, but against the very nature of existence, a nature that does not care, does not bend, does not acknowledge the sweat and tears poured into its unyielding surface. And so, as the night deepens and the street lamp flickers one last time before surrendering to shadow, a quiet resignation settles over them. Not defeat, not surrender, but a weary acknowledgement of the futility that shadows every act of defiance. They turn away from the empty streets, their footsteps slow and heavy, each one a silent question. If rebellion changes nothing, why do we persist? Is it madness to fight when the outcome is already written in the stars? Or is it the only way? We can truly claim our fleeting place in this vast, uncaring expanse. Perhaps the answer lies not in the victory, nor in the struggle itself, but in the mere act of standing, of speaking, of refusing, even for a moment, to be erased by the night. As the city fades into stillness behind them, the revolutionary walks on, carrying the weight of their unanswered cry, a weight that is both a burden and a strange, quiet testament to their existence. Imagine for a moment a vast chasm stretching endlessly before you, its edges jagged and cold, a deep darkness lurking at its heart. On one side, a hand reaches out, trembling, yearning, alive with the warmth of memory. On the other, another hand stretches in return, fingers splayed in desperate hope, yet the gap between them widens with each passing breath. This is the unspoken pain of connection, the quiet ache of reaching for another soul, knowing that to love is to invite the shadow of loss. Let us linger here, in this tender and fragile space, where the heart dares to bridge what may never be crossed. There is something profoundly human in this act of reaching, something that defines us even as it wounds us. We are creatures of longing, drawn to others as if by some ancient, invisible thread, a force older than words or reason. Think of the first time you felt the weight of someone's absence, a parent's fleeting goodbye, a friend's silent departure, a lover's gaze that no longer met yours. In that moment, did you not feel the chasm open within you, a hollow that no amount of distraction could fill? We build our lives around these connections, weaving intricate tapestries of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and quiet glances, only to realize that every thread is fragile, every bond a risk. To care for another is to hand them a piece of your soul, trusting they will hold it gently, all the while knowing that time, distance, or fate may one day tear it away. Consider the story of two souls who once stood side by side, their hands intertwined as if they could defy the very laws of the world. They met under a sky painted with the gold of a fading summer, their voices mingling with the rustle of leaves, their dreams spilling into one another like rivers merging into a boundless sea. They spoke of forever, as we all do in the throes, of connection, believing their bond could withstand any storm. But the chasm came, as it always does, slowly at first, in the form of unspoken words and missed glances, then wider in the shape of choices and paths that pulled them apart. Now, they stand on opposite sides of that great divide, their hands still reaching, their hearts still aching with the memory of what was. They can see each other, can almost feel the warmth of that lost touch, but the gap is too vast, the edges too sharp, and yet they reach anyway. Why do we do this? Why do we persist in loving, in connecting, when the pain of separation looms so large? This is the paradox at the core of our existence. To be human is to seek closeness, even as we know it may unravel us. Philosophers have long wrestled with this tension, this dance between the joy of togetherness and the inevitability of loss. Some might argue that we are wired for this suffering, that our capacity for love is inseparable from our capacity for grief. Others might say that it is precisely in this risk, in this vulnerability, that we find meaning, that to love in spite of loss is an act of courage, a defiance of the void. But pause here, in the quiet of this thought. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever reached across your own chasm, knowing the pain it might bring? What did it teach you about the weight of your own heart? Let us return to those two hands suspended in their eternal reach. Imagine the stories etched into their skin, the calluses of shared labor, the softness of a once comforting touch, the scars of battles fought side by side. Each mark is a testament to what they built together, and each mark now stings with the knowledge that it may never be felt again. There is a peculiar cruelty in this, a silent reminder that every connection carries within it the seed of its own ending. The laughter of yesterday becomes the silence of tomorrow. The warmth of a shared moment cools into memory. And yet, is there not also a strange beauty in this impermanence? Does the fleeting nature of our bonds not make each touch, each word, each glance more precious? Perhaps the chasm itself is not a curse, but a mirror, reflecting back to us the depth of what we feel, urging us to cherish what we have while it lasts. As we stand here, gazing into the darkness of that divide, let us not shy away from its truth. Connection is both our greatest strength and our deepest wound. We reach because we must, because to live without touching another soul is to live half alive, a shadow of what we could be. But in reaching, we accept the risk of falling, of feeling the chasm widen beneath us, of watching those we love slip beyond our grasp. It is a pain as old as humanity itself, a quiet ache that has echoed through every story ever told, every song ever sung. And still, we reach. Still, we hope. Still, we love, even as the shadows grow long and the gap seems insurmountable. So, let us linger a little longer with those two hands, frozen in their silent plea across the void. Feel the weight of their longing, the bittersweet pulse of their memory. Ask yourself, as the quiet settles around you, what chasms you have crossed, what hands you have reached for, what losses you have borne in the name of connection. And in the stillness, perhaps you will find not just pain, but a kind of peace, a recognition that to feel this ache is to have lived, to have loved, to have truly been here, in this fleeting, fragile, beautiful world. Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the thoughts settle like a soft dusk, wrapping you in its gentle weight as we rest in the mystery of what it means to reach, to connect, to lose, and to reach again. Imagine for a moment that you are standing alone on a jagged cliff, the vast ocean stretching endlessly before you, its waves whispering secrets too ancient to grasp. High above, a lighthouse has stood for decades, its beam a steadfast guide through the darkest of nights, a symbol of certainty in a world of shifting tides. But tonight, something is different. As you watch, the light falters, flickering weakly before it extinguishes altogether. The sea plunges into an impenetrable void, and with it, every sense of direction, every illusion of safety, collapses into the unknown. What happens when the beacons we rely on, those unwavering truths we cling to, suddenly vanish? What do we do when certainty itself crumbles beneath our feet? This is not merely a story of a lighthouse keeper watching their world grow dark. It is a reflection of something far deeper, something that philosophy, in its relentless pursuit of truth, forces us to confront. We build our lives on foundations of belief, ideas about who we are, why we exist, what is right and what is wrong. These are the lights that guide us through the fog of existence, the assurances that keep us steady when the storms of doubt arise. But philosophy, with its piercing questions and unyielding gaze, often reveals these certainties to be nothing more than fragile constructs, illusions we've crafted to shield ourselves from the vast, unknowable sea of reality. When we dare to look closer, to truly question, we risk watching those lights flicker out, one by one, until we are left adrift in a darkness we cannot navigate. Consider the lighthouse keeper, standing in the cold tower as the last spark of light dies. For years, their purpose was clear: to maintain the beam, to protect unseen sailors from the treacherous rocks below. Their life was built on the certainty of duty, the belief that their work mattered, that it held chaos at bay. But now, as the darkness swallows the horizon, a creeping realization emerges. What if the light was never enough? What if the sailors they sought to save were never there at all? What if the very purpose they clung to was nothing more than a comforting lie? A story they told themselves to endure the solitude of their watch. In this moment, the keeper is not just facing a broken machine. They are facing the collapse of everything they thought they knew. This is the peril of philosophy. It does not merely ask us to question the world around us. It demands that we turn that same scrutiny inward, to the very pillars that hold our lives together. We may begin with simple inquiries. Why do I believe what I believe? What is the foundation of my values? But these questions, like cracks in a dam, soon widen into floods of uncertainty. The more we probe, the more we uncover the fragility of our assumptions. That moral code you inherited, the one that seemed so absolute, begins to unravel when you trace its origins to mere tradition or convenience. That sense of self, so solid and defined, starts to blur when you realize how much of it is shaped by fleeting circumstances or the expectations of others. Even the very notion of truth, that unshakable anchor, becomes suspect when you see how often it bends to perspective or power. What then is left to hold on to when every light goes out? Take a moment to reflect on this. When was the last time a belief you held dear was called into question? Not by someone else, but by your own. Restless mind? Did it feel like a liberation? Or did it leave you stranded, staring into a void where answers used to be? Perhaps you felt that quiet dread, the sense that the more you know, the less you can trust. It's a strange paradox. We seek understanding to find solidity, yet often understanding only deepens the abyss. Like the lighthouse keeper, we stand at the edge of our own darkness, peering into a sea that offers no reflection, no reassurance, only the endless murmur of questions without end. And yet, there is something hauntingly beautiful in this collapse of certainty. To be adrift is not merely to be lost, it is to be free of the illusions that once confined us. The lighthouse keeper, now unburdened by the weight of a false purpose, might step outside the tower and feel the raw, unfiltered wind against their skin for the first time. They might hear the ocean not as a threat, but as a vast, untamed mystery, one that does not demand to be understood, only witnessed. In the absence of light, there is space for something new to emerge, not a replacement for the old certainties, but a quiet acceptance of the unknown. Philosophy, in dismantling our comforting illusions, does not always leave us empty. Sometimes it clears the way for a different kind of seeing, one that does not cling to false beacons, but learns to navigate by the faint glow of wonder itself. So, as you sit with this thought, imagine yourself beside that darkened lighthouse, the sea stretching out before you, infinite and unknowable. Feel the weight of certainty lift, even if just for a moment, and let yourself drift in the quiet expanse of doubt. There are no answers here, not yet, and perhaps there never will be. But in this space, where the old lights have gone out, there is a strange kind of peace, a recognition that to be adrift is not to be defeated, but to be open to whatever lies beyond the horizon. Imagine, for a moment, a vast, empty desert stretching endlessly beneath a sky so pale it seems to have forgotten the sun. At the heart of this desolate expanse stands a solitary statue, a towering figure of a king long gone, carved from stone, that once gleamed with purpose. His crown, though cracked, still tilts defiantly upward, as if commanding a kingdom that no longer exists. But the winds, relentless and uncaring, have worn his once proud face into a smooth, featureless mask. The name inscribed at his base is unreadable, erased by time's patient hand. Who was this ruler? What did he conquer, or lose, or dream? And does it matter now? in the silence of this forgotten place. This image lingers as a quiet, haunting question about the weight of legacy. We spend our lives building, striving, hoping to leave a mark, something that whispers our name long after we're gone, a book written, a child raised, a cause fought for, a monument erected. We tell ourselves these things will endure, that they will carry our essence into a future we'll never see. But what if the world, in its vast indifference, simply looks away? What if the winds of time sweep over our greatest works as carelessly as they have this king's stone visage? Is legacy a gift we offer to eternity, or merely a burden we pile upon our own shoulders, hoping it might mean something when we're no longer here to see? Consider the hands that carved this statue, the labor of countless souls who poured their sweat and dreams into immortalizing their ruler. Perhaps they believed their work would stand forever, a testament to their devotion. Or perhaps they knew, even then, that stone crumbles and memory fades. Did they carve with hope or with resignation? And what of the king himself? Did he lie, awake at night, wondering if his reign would echo through the ages, or if he, too, would dissolve into the dust of oblivion? We can almost hear his voice, carried on the desert breeze, asking if any of it was worth the weight he bore in life. Take a moment to reflect on this. What are the monuments you're building in your own life? Are they for others to remember, or for you to feel, in some fleeting way, that your existence matters? Do you imagine your words, your deeds, your creations standing tall against the horizon of time? Or do you sense, deep down, the quiet truth that even the mightiest legacies are but whispers in the grand, unending silence? Let's wander closer to this statue, our footsteps soft against the shifting sands. Up close, we see the faint traces of what once was: a scepter in a broken hand, a mantle etched with symbols no one alive can decipher. Each detail was once a story, a declaration of power, or love, or triumph. Now, they are nothing more than curiosities for the rare traveler who stumbles upon this place. And yet, isn't there something strangely beautiful in this decay? Not in the loss itself, but in the way it strips away pretense, leaving only the raw, unadorned truth that nothing lasts forever. Perhaps legacy isn't about endurance, but about the act of creation itself. The brief, defiant spark of saying, "I was here," even if the world forgets. But let's linger on a darker thought. What if the weight of legacy isn't just in what we leave behind, but in the fear that it might mean nothing at all? We've all felt it, haven't we? That quiet dread when we wonder if our lives, our struggles, our joys will vanish like footprints in sand, smoothed over by the first gust of wind. The king who once stood as a colossus now teaches us a silent lesson. Even the mightiest among us cannot command memory. Time is no respecter of crowns or titles. It moves with a patience we cannot fathom, unraveling all we hold dear until even our names are strangers to the earth. And yet, as we stand before this crumbling figure, there's a whisper of something else. A release, perhaps. If legacy is a weight we choose to carry, might we also choose to set it down? What would it mean to live not for the future's judgment, but for the fleeting beauty of now? To act, to love, to create. Not because it will be remembered, but because it feels true in this singular, unrepeatable moment. The desert around us is still, as if holding its breath, waiting for us to answer. The statue offers no guidance, its blank face a mirror for our own uncertainties. But in its silence, there is space to wonder, to let go of the need for permanence, and to simply be here, beneath a sky that has seen empires rise and fall without a flicker of concern. Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine standing in this desert, the weight of your own legacy pressing down like the heat of an unseen sun. Can you feel the pull to let it go, to let your actions be enough in themselves, without the promise of forever? Or does the thought of being forgotten stir a deeper ache, a need to carve your name into the stone of time, no matter how fleetingly. As the wind stirs the sand around the statue's base, we step back, leaving the forgotten king to his quiet vigil. His story, whatever it was, is no longer ours to know. But the question of legacy remains, a shadow that follows us through every choice, every dream, every quiet moment of doubt. It asks us to consider what we're building and why, and whether in the end, the weight we carry is one we've chosen or one we've forgotten how to release. Imagine for a moment a vast, barren landscape stretching endlessly beneath a pale, unyielding sky. A lone traveler, cloaked in worn fabric, trudges forward, their steps heavy with the dust of countless miles. In their eyes, you can almost see a faint glimmer, a remnant of something once bright, now dimmed by the weight of the journey. This is not just a crossing of land, but a crossing of the soul, where the once burning flame of hope flickers against a relentless wind. What happens when the belief in a better tomorrow begins to crumble, not with a dramatic crash, but with a slow, quiet erosion, like sand slipping through open fingers? Picture this traveler pausing at the edge of a dried riverbed, their gaze tracing the cracks in the earth where water once flowed with promise. They remember setting out with a heart full of dreams, a vision of an oasis just beyond the next ridge, a place where the struggles of the road would finally make sense. But ridge after ridge, the horizon offered nothing but more emptiness, more silence. Each step forward became less about reaching a destination and more about refusing to stand still, as if movement itself could keep the fading spark alive. Yet, deep within, a whisper grows louder. What if there is no oasis? What if the journey's end holds no reward, only the same barren truth that has shadowed every mile? Consider how hope, that fragile thread we cling to, can become a burden of its own. It is not the absence of struggle that exhausts us, but the weight of expecting relief that never comes. The traveler kneels now, running their fingers through the dry dust, searching for a sign, perhaps a buried seed, a hint of life to justify the endless march. But the earth remains silent, indifferent to their longing. And in this silence, a profound weariness settles into their bones, not of the body, but of the spirit. It is the exhaustion of hoping against a reality that does not bend, does not yield, does not care. Have you ever felt this weight? A moment where the promise of tomorrow felt more like a taunt than a comfort. Take a moment to reflect on this. Let your mind wander to a time when you too carried a hope that grew heavier with each passing day. Perhaps it was a dream you chased, a belief in a future that would heal the wounds of the present. Did you feel it slip, little by little, until the act of hoping itself became a quiet ache? Now, as the traveler rises once more, their movements are slower, not from defeat, but from a dawning realization. They look to the horizon, not with the eager eyes of before, but with a gaze tempered by truth. Hope, they begin to understand, is not an eternal flame to be guarded at all costs. Sometimes it is a mirage, a beautiful illusion that drives us forward, yet crumbles when we draw near. And in its fading, there is not just loss, but a strange, heavy peace. To let go of that, flickering light is to face the barren land as it is, unadorned by dreams that cannot withstand the harshness of the real. Is this surrender? Or is it something else? A quiet courage to walk on, not for a promised end, but for the sake of the journey itself. The traveler takes another step, their silhouettes small against the vast emptiness. The wind howls softly, carrying away the last echoes of what once was a burning belief. Yet in this moment, there is no despair, only a profound stillness. The exhaustion of hope has carved a space within them, a hollow where the weight of expectation no longer presses so fiercely. Perhaps this is where true endurance begins, not in the pursuit of a fleeting tomorrow, but in the acceptance of the endless now. As the dust swirls around their feet, obscuring the path ahead, a question lingers in the air, as quiet as a whisper. Can we find strength not in what we hope for, but in what we learn to release. Imagine, for a moment, that the world around you begins to fade, not with a dramatic crash or a sudden darkness, but with a quiet, almost imperceptible dissolving. The edges of reality soften, the clamor of daily life recedes, and you find yourself seated beneath an ancient tree at twilight, its gnarled branches stretching like silent sentinels into a sky painted with the last whispers of day. Here, in this liminal space between light and shadow, there is nothing to grasp, nothing to hold, nothing to claim as your own. And in this nothing, a strange weight begins to lift, a weight you hadn't even realized you were carrying. This is the realm of emptiness, a concept that weaves through the heart of Buddhist thought, though it echoes in the quiet corners of many philosophies. It is not a void of despair, not a hollow pit to fall into, but a profound letting go, a release of the attachments that tether us to suffering, the desires, the fears, the endless need to define ourselves against the backdrop of an ever-shifting world. Yet, to approach this emptiness is to feel, at first, a kind of crushing. The ego, that fragile construct we've built to shield us from the vastness of existence, trembles under the weight of its own dissolution. What are we, if not the sum of our wants, our memories, our striving? What remains when we strip away the illusions we've clung to? Picture the tree above you, its roots sinking deep into the earth, yet its leaves falling one by one, carried off by a breeze you cannot see. Each leaf is a thought, a possession, a piece of who you thought you were. As they drift away, there is a pang, a quiet ache, as if you're losing something vital. But watch them go. See how they spiral into the twilight, dissolving into the greater whole of the night. Is there not a kind of freedom in this release? A lightness that comes when you no longer need to hold on? In the teachings of Buddhism, emptiness, shunyata, is not a negation, but a revelation. It is the understanding that nothing exists in isolation, that all things are interconnected, arising and fading in a ceaseless dance. The tree is not just a tree, it is the soil, the rain, the sun, the countless lives that have brushed against it through time. And you, sitting beneath it, are not just a solitary being, but a fleeting convergence of countless causes and conditions. To see this is to feel the boundaries of self begin to blur, to crumble under the weight of a truth too vast to contain. And yet, in that crumbling, there is liberation. The crushing weight of individuality gives way to something boundless. Take a moment to reflect on this. Feel the bark of the tree against your back, the coolness of the ground beneath you. Let your breath slow, mirroring the rhythm of the evening air. What would it mean to let go, truly let go, of the need to be something, to prove something, to hold something as yours? What would it mean to sit in this emptiness, not as a loss, but as an opening? There is a story told in ancient texts of a monk who spent years seeking enlightenment, chasing after wisdom as if it were a treasure to be seized. He meditated, he studied, he renounced every pleasure, every comfort, believing that the harder he grasped, the closer he would come to truth. But one evening, exhausted and broken, he sat beneath a tree much like this one, and in a moment of surrender, he let go of his striving. And in that letting go, he saw there was nothing to attain, nothing to become. The world was empty of the meaning he'd projected onto it. And yet, in that emptiness, it was full of a peace that needed no name. This is the paradox of nothingness. To accept it is to feel the weight of the self dissolve, to be crushed by the realization that so much of what we chase is illusion. But in that crushing, there is a rebirth, a quiet freedom that blooms in the space left behind. As the twilight deepens around you, as the last light fades from the sky, imagine yourself as part of this vast, interconnected emptiness. Not separate, not alone, but woven into the fabric of all that is, all that has been, all that will be. Let the silence of this moment linger. There is no need to fill it with thought, no need to reach for answers. The tree stands witness, the night enfolds you, and in this quiet void, there is a kind of rest. A rest that comes not from escaping the weight of existence, but from embracing its absence. Sit here for as long as you wish, and let the world dissolve into stillness. Imagine, for just a moment, a world where the clamor of your thoughts finally falls silent. A place where the endless questions, the relentless pursuit of meaning, and the weight of every unanswered doubt simply dissolve into the ether. Picture a lake at dawn, its surface so still that it mirrors the pale sky above, unbroken by even the slightest ripple. There is no urgency here, no demand for answers, no burden to carry. There is only the quiet, a quiet so profound it seems to hum with a forgotten truth. What would it mean to rest in such a place, to let the storm of philosophy release its grip on your soul, and to simply be? This is not an escape, nor is it surrender in the way we often imagine it. It is something softer, something more tender, a kind of arrival after a long, arduous journey through the labyrinth of thought. Philosophy, with all its piercing inquiries and unyielding demands, has a way of breaking us down. It strips away the illusions we cling to, the comforting narratives we tell ourselves about purpose, identity, and destiny. It leaves us raw, exposed, standing on the shore of our own uncertainty. But what if, in the aftermath of that breaking, there is not just ruin, but also release? What if, after the crush of endless questioning, there is a stillness waiting to hold us? Think of that lake again, its waters unmoving under the first light of day. It does not ask anything of you. It does not challenge you to define its depths or explain its existence. It simply is, a presence so complete in its silence that it seems to whisper a forgotten wisdom. In the wake of philosophy's storm, perhaps, this is the gift we are offered, the chance to set down the weight of our restless minds and allow ourselves to mirror that stillness, to stop seeking, if only for a moment, and to rest in the vast, quiet expanse of what remains. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt such a quiet within yourself? A fleeting instant where the need to understand, to grasp, to conquer with thought simply melted away? Or does the idea of such peace feel almost foreign, like a language you've never learned to speak? Consider the paradox that lies here. Philosophy, in its relentless pursuit of truth, often leads us to the edge of exhaustion. It demands that we wrestle with the infinite, that we confront the void, that we bear the weight of our own freedom and the silence of an indifferent universe. And yet, in its deepest currents, it also points us toward this very stillness. The ancient sages of the East spoke of emptiness not as a loss, but as a return, a shedding of the ego's clamor to reveal the boundless quiet beneath. The Stoics, too, hinted at this in their call to accept what cannot be changed, to find tranquility in the face of life's storms. Even the existentialists, with their stark visions of absurdity, often circled back to a kind of peace born from embracing the lack of inherent meaning, a peace that allows us to create our own without the crushing need for cosmic validation. But to arrive at this quiet is no small feat. It requires us to pass through the fire of thought, to let it burn away the illusions we hold dear, and to emerge on the other side not as conquerors, but as quiet witnesses. Picture yourself now, standing at the edge of that dawn-lit lake. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of dew and earth. The world around you is hushed, as if it too is holding its breath. Your mind, so often a tempest of questions and doubts, begins to slow. The ripples of thought that once churned within you grow still, one by one, until there is nothing left but the reflection of the sky in your own depths. What do you feel in this moment? Is it relief? Or is it something deeper? A recognition of something you've always carried but never named? Take a moment to linger here. Let the image of that unbroken lake settle into your being. Let it remind you that even after the weight of philosophy has pressed down on your soul, there is a space beyond the struggle, a space where the questions no longer demand answers, where the burdens no longer need to be carried, and where you are free to simply exist, as vast and quiet as the water before you. This quiet after the crush is not a destination, nor is it a final truth to be grasped. It is a resting place, a momentary pause in the endless dance of thought and wonder. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps, in the end, the greatest gift philosophy offers is not the answers it seeks, but the permission it grants us to lay down our seeking altogether, to stand at the edge of the unknown, and to find a strange, tender peace in the silence that follows. So let us rest here by this still lake, under this pale dawn. Let us breathe in the quiet and let it hold us, if only for now.